Hi guys, this is George.k.chamoun, and in this video I'm gonna go over how to use the CSS3 transform and attributes to style HTML5 elements. And I had a video a couple days ago about the transform property, and I used them separate. I'm gonna be using the same template now, the same web page I built here, this one. And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna be using, since the title says combination, it means I'm gonna be combining different attributes and applying them to one element. So yesterday I used, a couple days ago, I used the transform with attributes scale and skew and translate and rotate. Those attribute functions, and they have their parameters, angles and pixels. I had to use one per cube. I had 4 cubes here, just to show you each one how it works. So in this video I'm gonna use the same elements, the same attributes I used before, but instead of applying one per cube, I'm gonna apply 2 or 3 or 4 on one cube, just to show you the combined effect of transforming of the transform attributes using different values, different values for one cube. So let's I think it's easier if I show you what I'm talking about. And again, I'm using the same template I used yesterday, which is this one here. And this is a web page, but it's on my computer using Visual Studio Code. It's a very prevalent code video actually code editor, and it's used widely, and it's very recommended by a lot of expert web developers. So this is what I'm using now, and I'm using a lot of assets that I used before because I just need to minor changes in the CSS style sheet here. So let's start. Let's say I'm gonna style cube number 1 here. I'm gonna go down. I'm looking at the style sheet. This is cube 1, and what we have here is gonna style cube 1. So let me go down and use transform code editor colon, and it's used widely, and it's very recommended by a lot of expert web developers. So this is what I'm using now, and I'm using a lot of assets that I used before. Transform, because and then it's gonna give me the options. I'm gonna use scale. Okay, scale X. Scale X, it means I'm gonna expand the cube 1 along the X axis, which is the horizontal axis. That's why it has scale X, and I'm gonna give it 1.5, which is enlarge it like half of its size. So I'm gonna add 1.5. So what this did now, it elongated or enlarged cube 1 along the X axis 1.5, 1.5 times. And let's use the rotate. I'm gonna rotate it now. Transform, scale. Okay, scale X. Rotate. Scale X, it means rotate. I'm gonna expand the cube 1 along the X axis, which is the horizontal axis. That's why it has scale X, and I'm gonna give it 1.5, which is enlarge it like half of its size. So I'm gonna add 1.5. So what this did, I'm gonna use rotate along the around the x-axis, and I'm gonna give it, let's say, 45 degrees. Let's use the rotate. I'm gonna rotate it now. Transform, rotate. I'm gonna use rotate along the around the x-axis, and I'm gonna give it, let's say, 45 degrees. Okay, transform scale 1.5, 2.5. Okay, it looks like both are not working, like one of them is taking effect, the rotate. Let me try to use them on the same line. Okay, it worked now. Okay, okay, it looks like, okay, so we cannot use them, it didn't work if we use them on separate lines like I did before. And so you have to use them on the same line, so they'll be both applied to the element, to the styling element. So what I did is scale to, it means I enlarge it by 2 times its dimensions twice, and then I rotated x 170 degrees, and it worked. Now there's certain format you have to use, you have to get used to the format when you type codes, and you always can fall back on the references like w3schools.com, which is this one here. You can always look at this one, but they did not use the combination, they used them separate. That's what I did yesterday, but I guess you can use them looking at studio code. You have the option, I think, to use more. So let's also use, to see if we can do the skew function, actually the translate. What the translate function does, it will move the element from its original position depending on what dimensions you use. Let's say I'm gonna use translate the x. I'm gonna move it along the x-axis 100 pixels. So I'm gonna use translate along the x-axis, and I'm gonna give it 100 pixels. Okay, so it moved 100. So this is how you apply. I never used it before, that's why I had hard time to make it work now. But it looks like you can use the transform one time, and you can use the attributes on the same line. You don't have to type transform 2-3 times like what I did before. And you can use the values, the attributes like the scale, the rotate x, translate x on the same line, and you don't even have to separate them by commas or anything else. So you just type them the way I did now, transform colon scale 2. These numbers can change. The numbers between parentheses, you can change them depending on what value you want to use, how much you want to rotate it or expand it. So in this case, I made the number 1 cube twice as big, 2 times, and I did rotation on the x, along the x-axis. I think, yeah, the x-axis, so it's this way, 170 degrees. And I did a translate 100 pixel along the x-axis. Translate, it means it moved the cube from its original position by 100 pixels, and you can see it here. And now let's make some changes. Let's say I want to just use the rotate 170 degrees and translate x, and I want to remove the scale 2. I don't want to make it bigger, so it's gonna go back to its original size, but it's still gonna be rotated 170 degrees and moved 100 pixels. So let's try it. So let's say I moved this scale 170 degrees, and I did a translate, so it's back to its original value, but it kept the rotate function and the translate. So if we remove the translate now, now let's make some changes. It's gonna move it back to its original position, 170 degrees, and like 100 pixels in the opposite direction, but it's gonna keep it rotated. I don't want to make it bigger, so it's gonna go back to its original size, but it's still gonna be so this is what happened. So this is how you use different attributes in combination for the transform attribute. Actually, this is the selector here, and this is the attributes and those values, but sometimes the value it takes another parameter here. So that's how you use it. Let's use it on number 2 here. I'm gonna use, let's say, translate transform. Let's say I want to move cube number 2 200 pixels in combination for the transform translate x. Actually, this is the selector here, 200 pixels. This is the attributes and those values, but sometimes the value it takes another parameter here. So okay, so it moved 200 pixels. Let's use it on number 2 here. I'm gonna use, and translate. Let's rotate it 45 degrees. Rotate along the x. Let's say I want to move cube number 2 45 degrees. 200 pixels. Okay, it rotated a little bit. And let's scale it 3 times along the x-axis, 3 times. So that's what happened. Okay, so it moved 200 pixels, but it looks like it didn't. Yeah, it's scaled. Okay, okay. If we wanna scale it in both directions, we just remove the x, I think. Let's see. Yeah. So scaling, and if you use one number, it's gonna do it in the x and y direction, in both direction. And again, I'm using the 2D transform because there's another transformation. It's the transform 3D transform, but I have not used it yet. We're just talking about the 2D transform here. So let's see. So let's put those back together. It looks like it didn't remove the what we did, and put back the cubes to their original space. Okay, so they're back to normal now. Let's say I'm gonna try something on cube number 4 here. Cube number 4. We can do something along the y-axis. We did that before, everything on the x-axis. Let's say I wanna do scaling in both directions, and maybe a rotation in a y direction, and translating in the y direction too, just to make a change from the x direction. So transform. Let's say I'm gonna try transform. Let's say I'm gonna do scale in a y direction, in a y. I'm gonna give it 2.5, 2, or just 2. Let's say I wanna do. Okay, so we made it twice as big in a y along the y-axis. We didn't use it, but if we want it to be bigger along the x-axis and the y, we just remove the y from here, and the word scale it give you both directions. See what happened? So let's give it 3. Okay, so this way is 3 times in a y direction, in a y, Okay. So let's give it a rotation, rotate along the y-axis, the y, and it's gonna be 45 degrees. So basically we can rotate it 45 degrees this way, 45 degrees. See what happens. So let's give it 170. Okay, so it rotated this way, you know. So it looks like the 170 will show us more than the 45 degrees. And let's say I want to skew it. Skew. So the skew is what it does. The skew along the X line, it moved it this way at certain angle you specify. So let's try skew X. Skew X. 45 degrees. 45 degrees. Okay, so what it did, it made it 3 times larger. Let's make it smaller 2 times. 2 times. So in this case, we made everything 2 times larger, and we kept the rotation along the y-axis for 170 degrees, and we added the skew X at 45 degrees, which made it skewed this way along the x-axis at 45 degrees, and this is the 45. And if we give it 30 degrees, it's gonna be less. Let's give it 30 degrees, so it's gonna be less. 10 is less than the 30, and if you give it 10 degrees, you cannot even notice it, I think. Yeah, you can notice it's little bit, you know, like the 5 degrees maybe. Yeah, the 5, it's little bit. So that's how you do the skew on the X. If we want to do the skew along the y-axis, we use Y, and this, it's gonna get skewed this way. That's the y-axis, and we can give it, let's say, 45 degrees, which will be skewed more. Skewed, and it keeps the rotation along the Y and the transform the scale 2 times. So this is how you use the let's also add, let me see, add the translate function. The translate will move it, let's say translate X, it's gonna move it along the x-axis, and you specify a parameter. Let's say we're gonna move it 100 pixels this way. So translate X 100 pixels. So that's what happened. We moved it 100 pixels, and the scale 2 times. So this is how you use the yeah. Let's also add. Okay, I cannot figure out why it moved in other direction. It was supposed to move this way. Let's say we're gonna move it 100 pixels this way. So translate X 100 pixels. So that's what happened. We moved it 100 pixels. Let me put translate in the beginning. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe. Okay. So it looks like the order you put the attributes for the transform, the values, it makes a difference. So in this case, you have to use the translate X first, because if you use it at the end, it's gonna do an opposite effect, because I put it at the end and it moved it this way in a negative direction of the x-axis. And if you use it in a beginning, it's gonna give you the right direction, plus to on the axis, on the x-axis. So again, that's all for this video. Basically, we what we did is using the let's put back the number 4 back to its original size. Okay, so everything is back to normal. Now let me go up one time. Let me try what we tried on number 4 for number 1. This is number 1. Same thing, it's gonna do the same thing like number 4. So that's it for this video. If you have any questions, please submit them in a comment. I have my email address and you can send me a tweet. And if you are interested in the training material that I started with, which is this code and the those files here, and that will give you the element for the index page, which is this one, and the main.css, which is the style sheet, and both of those in combination, they're gonna produce this web page here, this example web page. And you have to have your code editor, Visual Studio Code, or another one. And you can download them. The links are in the description below. One of them for free. If you join my mailing list, you get them for free. And the other one is paid. But with the paid, you'll have the option to join my mailing list while you're purchasing it. And with your purchase, you will get a 1 hour free one-on-one from me personally to answer your questions about recreating this example on your computer, and, or if things did not work well. So again, my name is George Chamoun, and I want to thank you for your time. Whether you're here now or in the future, you can see this video. Please give me some ideas to what you're interested in learning next related to software I use on this channel.